Welcome to the Parsha Themes Shir, Parsha Va'eschanan, and it's for the Refuah Shalem of Moshe Shimon ben Leah Esther Chaya Halevi. So the Parsha starts that Moshe prays yet again, Ve'etchadon el HaShem be'ez hahi lemor, and I implored HaShem at that time, saying. There are 10 Hebrew words for prayer. This one, Ve'etchadon, is asking for an undeserved favor. A tzaddik like Moshe never feels he has enough merit to deserve to be answered by HaShem. This followed the conquering of the lands of Sihon and Og on the east side of the Jordan River. He thought that perhaps, since the conquest of the land of Israel had effectively already begun, that HaShem may have relented on his ban from Moshe entering. We are told that Moshe prayed 515 times, which is the same as the gematria of the word Ve'etchadon, to enter the land of Israel. He desired to fulfill the mitzvahs that could only be performed in Eretz Israel. The Pasuk says that he implored HaShem lemor, saying. That seems like an extra word. What does it come to teach us? It teaches that by continuing to pray, Moshe was teaching that for all generations, just as he hadn't given up even after God told him that he wouldn't enter the land, we should also never give up praying, even if Hashem up to that point appears not to have answered us positively. The fact is, no prayer is wasted. Even seemingly unanswered prayers are stored up by Hashem and can act as grounds for compassion later when we may need it. They also generally increase spiritual energies and improve the human condition in the whole world. Human prayer can initiate a divine response, even if not for exactly what we asked him for, but because what we ask for is not always the best thing for us. Prayer is a form of dialogue with God and is fundamental. By praying, we develop a personal relationship with him and draw down blessings from above, where appropriate. So now, unity and perfection of the Torah. Lo sisifu v'lo sigru'u, you shall not add nor subtract, the Pasuk says. The Torah is perfect in every way. It is the blueprint by which God created the entire world. It is indivisible from God himself. Therefore, it is forbidden to add an additional bracha blessing to the priestly blessings, or subtract one, or to similarly alter any mitzvah of the Torah we are commanded in. Gechol ha-Torah hazos, like all this Torah. The Torah must be seen as a whole. It must be observed in its entirety, otherwise it is meaningless. Now, clinging to God, the Pasuk says, "Va'atem hadvekim b'Hashem chaim kulchem hayom." But you who cling to Hashem, all of you are alive today. What is it to cling to Hashem? As obviously as not possible in physical terms. But it means if someone seeks ways to help Torah scholars, it is as if they cling to Hashem and will thus be rewarded with life in the next world. Clinging to Hashem is also interpreted to mean clinging onto the Torah. In other words, just holding on to Torah is not enough, but learning Torah with all our passion, with all the abilities that we have, that's considered clinging to Hashem. Upholding the Torah and its values is the only reason we have survived as a people for millennia. We must tie ourselves so tightly to Torah that we cannot break loose from it. This is why Moshe repeatedly stressed, "But you who cling to Hashem, you are all alive today. And to him you shall cleave," and to love Hashem, to listen to his voice, and to cleave to him. And King David also says, "I have clung to your testimonies," in Tehillim. So to cling and cleave means to be inseparably attached to Torah. Learning Torah and doing mitzvahs is of the greatest importance, but it isn't by itself enough even. The Gemara says that the single verse that the entire Torah depends on is "Know Hashem in all your ways, b'chol darechecha darkehu." Cleaving and clinging is not accomplished by relating to HaShem just through Torah study and in the performance of mitzvahs, but in everything we do, including eating, sleeping, in our business activities, and through socializing. It is this kind of observance of Torah that can save us from the destructive attractions of the Zachor, the evil inclination. Now HaShem is always with his people, even in far-flung lands. The Pasuk says, "From there you will seek the Lord your God, and you will find him." The Torah stresses that when you seek God from there, from your place of exile among the nations, you will also find him. For God is to be found everywhere, and every corner of his creation can serve as the vehicle to reach him. If divine providence has dispatched you to a certain place in life, your surest path to him is from there. And also we are where we are meant to be. We're in exactly the right place to continue fulfilling our own personal mission. Now, the divine revelation and transmission. Panim b'panim, face to face, says the verse. Moshe emphasized that the entire nation had heard the Ten Commandments not in a dream state or vision, but rather in a direct revelation while in possession of all their faculties. Rav Hirsch writes, everything rests upon this one basic fact, that the nation itself witnessed the divine revelation of the law. Thus, the nation has a direct guarantee that this law is indeed divine and that God is a personal and supernatural being. Hence it is, before all else, this basic historic fact, the revelation of the law at Sinai, proven by the evidence of our own physical senses, that must remain alive forever in our hearts and minds, and must be handed down to our children so that they too may take it to heart and pass it on to future generations. A personal experience, perceived simultaneously by an entire nation, is an unparalleled, unique foundation for the historicity of the revelation. And the fact that the entire nation communicated it from one generation to the next represents a similarly unique, unparalleled preservation of that experience in the basic awareness of all future generations. For we would not testify falsely to our own children, or bequeath to them vain and useless ideas. They will not doubt at all our testimony. Rather, they will believe for sure that all of us saw with our own eyes all that we told them. Both great philosophers, the Rambam and the Ramban, teach that the revelation is the proof of the divinity and immortality of the Torah. The unbroken transmission of the details of the revelation from generation to generation is a mitzvah which is indispensable for the eternal faith in and observance of the mitzvahs as given by HaShem to Moshe at Sinai. Moshe said, "So let your children know what you yourself have seen. Hand it down to them with all the resoluteness and certainty born of personal experience, in such a manner that this experience of yours will become the basis for the knowledge attained by all your descendants." Such is the tradition received by an entire national entity and handed down by each generation to an entire national posterity. This is the only way in which historic fact can remain authentic even in the minds of the remotest descendants. For in the final analysis, the authenticity even of written records rests on the facts that their contents have been handed down collectively by all the fathers to all the sons, and are therefore considered true beyond doubt. As we read the recounting of the revelation at Sinai, we must emphasize, internalize, and transmit to our children and grandchildren the certainty, divinity, and eternity of the Torah. As Rav Hirsch wrote, everything rests upon this one basic fact. It is not only a mitzvah to recall it, as the Ramban teaches, it is the only way to preserve our holy heritage forever. Once this momentous event was engraved into the national consciousness, the people were convinced beyond any doubt that whatever Moshe commanded them came from the same source that had revealed himself to them at Sinai. Now, the laws of Shabbos. Shamor versus Zachor. Observing the Shabbos is fundamental to being a Torah-observant Jew, since it recalls and commemorates both God's creation of the world, which he created in 6 days, and, says the verse, he rested on the seventh, and also the exodus from Egypt and the related freedom from slavery, such that Klal Yisrael were freely able to observe the Shabbos day. The creation itself tells us God is the prime mover in the universe, whereas the Exodus, by way of the plagues and splitting of the sea, proves that he also fully and intimately interacts with his creation. The wording used here in our Parsha is Shamor, guard, whereas in Exodus it is Zachor, remember. The Gemara explains that when HaShem was proclaiming the Aseret Dibros, the 10 Commandments on Har Sinai, both the mitzvahs Aseh, the positive commandment of Zachor, and the mitzvahs Lo Sa'aseh, the negative commandment of Shamor, were spoken simultaneously. The Talmud does not record any tradition which of the two texts it actually appeared on the luchos, the tablets. Some say both words miraculously appeared on them simultaneously. Shamor means to guard it, to guard the Shabbos, by refraining from malachos, which are specific forbidden creative activities which transgress the Shabbos day. Zachor means to remember it, by sanctifying the day with the Kiddush prayer using wine, and by dedicating the day to spiritual activities such as learning Torah. Now, Jewish fundamentals, the Shema, where Shema Yisrael, HaShem Elokeinu, HaShem Echad. History of the Shema according to the Midrash. So the patriarch Yaakov was on his deathbed with his sons assembled, and was about to reveal by prophecy the date of the end times when the Mashiach, the Messiah, would arrive, when the Shekhinah, the presence of God, deserted him. He was concerned that perhaps it was because not all his sons were righteous. After all, both his father Yitzchak and grandfather Avram had fathered wicked offspring, Esav and Ishmael respectively. But all 12 sons now reassured him with the affirmation, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Hear Yisrael, which is the other name for Yaakov. We all testify that Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. In other words, we all believe in the same single God that you brought us up to believe in. The 3 paragraphs of the Shema contain several major themes. Yichud Hashem, the oneness of Hashem, and Avos Hashem, loving God. And also the mitzvah of Talmud Torah, of Torah learning, the mitzvah of Tefillin, and of Mezuzah. So, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. The letters Ayin and Dalet in that phrase appear large in the Torah and other scrolls also, and they spell aid, which means witness. Thus, by saying the Shema, we bear witness to God's oneness, unity, meaning that in reality there is nothing but Him. We inhabit a cosmic mirage. We perceive myriad creations, all seemingly self-sufficient and independent beings. But as Jews, the descendants of Avraham Avinu, who preached monotheism to his generation, we believe that there is only one true entity, one God who is the essence of everything, one God manifest in an infinite amount of creations. Engraving this counterintuitive idea into our psyches is our greatest challenge, but it is key to developing a true appreciation for and a relationship with our Creator. Towards this end, every morning and night we recite the Shema, with 3 biblical paragraphs, which starts with Judaism's defining statement, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. The Shema then discusses some of Judaism's basics, the love of God, Torah study, the principle of divine reward and punishment, and our exodus from Egypt. Contemplating these themes enables us to see beyond the mirage and live accordingly. Now, Shema, loving God. The Pasuk says, V'ahavta, and you shall love the Lord your God. The ideal is to serve God out of love rather than fear of being punished, for example. This leads one to feel able to make greater sacrifices. But there is a paradox. If someone loves God, he does not need to be told to do so. If he does not love God, telling him to will not change his mind. Therefore, both Maimonides and the Baal Shem Tov explain this verse to be both a commandment and a promise. We are commanded to contemplate the unity of God, which is described in the preceding verse, Hear, O Israel, God is our God, God is one. And if we meditate on the meaning of this verse deeply enough, we are assured that we will indeed thereby come to love God. Also, generally, when we continue to contemplate and read about his wonders, it should automatically inculcate Ahavas Hashem, the love of God within us. Ahavas Hashem, the love of God, is fundamental to a life of Torah and mitzvahs. But how do we practically fulfill this core mitzvah? There are several important aspects of Avodas Hashem that are vehicles for a proper fulfillment of Ahavas Hashem, the love of God, in our daily lives. So the Rambam in Hilchos Teshuvah equates loving Hashem with knowing Hashem. Just as the love one feels for another person increases the better one gets to know that person, so too the more we know Hashem, the more intense our love for him becomes. How do we attain this requisite knowledge of Hashem? The Rambam explains that by delving into his wisdom we can know Hashem, and that wisdom is comprised of two parts. First, by studying the intricacies of his creation, we can attain a greater understanding of Hashem and thereby enable our love of him to grow. The Rambam also highlights that Hashem revealed the second aspect of his knowledge to us in his Torah. The greater understanding of Torah one achieves, the more one knows and thereby loves Hashem. This relationship between Ahavas Hashem and Talmud Torah appears in the Shema itself. Immediately after the Torah commands us to love Hashem, we are instructed to immerse ourselves in Talmud Torah, in learning Torah. It is only through a deep commitment to Talmud Torah that one can reach the lofty goal of Ahavas Hashem, the love of Hashem. We usually associate Ahavas Hashem with the mitzvahs bein Adam l'makom, meaning commandments between man and God. And yet, even our service bein Adam l'chavera, between a man and man, depends upon internalizing our love for Hashem. The sages interpret the mitzvah of v'halachta b'drachov, to walk in the ways of Hashem, as the source for the mitzvah of chesed, of kindness. Hashem performs countless acts of chesed, kindness, and we are supposed to imitate him. We naturally look to imitate those whom we admire. As such, by following the example of Hashem and performing acts of kindness, we express our love and admiration for him. Ahavas Hashem, the love of Hashem, also expresses itself in merging our bein Adam l'makom with our bein Adam l'chavera. Chazal, the sages, teach us that part of Ahavas Hashem is to bring others to love Hashem. One who exemplifies Ahavas Hashem and is pleasant to other human beings will encourage others to lead their lives in a similar manner. We are commanded to love Hashem with all our hearts, our souls, and our possessions. This intense love comes about from our pursuit of the knowledge of Hashem, and it is this love that results in our performance of chesed and sets the tone for our interpersonal behavior. Now, to love God with all our heart, soul, and might. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your might, and with all your soul. With all your soul and with all your might. With all your heart means we are required to act by following after our Yetzer Tov, our good inclination, as opposed to our Yetzer Hara, our bad inclination. The heart, after all, is considered the seat of emotions. Or that we should serve him with both kinds of physical drives. In other words, our drive for good and also that drive for bad. For example, by channeling even our physical lusts into serving God, by learning the Torah with fiery passion, for example. With all your soul means we should develop such a powerful commitment that we are even ready to sacrifice our lives for his service, should the law require it. For example, rather than committing any of the three sins of idolatry, immorality, or murder, which we are commanded to die rather than to transgress. And with all your might means with all your material possessions or resources. In other words, even if the love of God causes one to lose all his money. Now, more on the Shema, the first paragraph. And these matters that I command you today, what does today teach us? That all the words should be fresh, new, and exciting as if they had been commanded this very day. The next verse begins, V'shenantam lebanecha, and you are to teach them to your children. The Gemara teaches that banecha, literally your children, refers to talmidecha, your students. The ideal teacher is the one who looks at his students as if they are his children. The teacher should express the same great love that a father has for his own children, for his students also. The next verse is Ukashartam la'os al yodecha v'hayulat bein einecha, and you are to bind them for a sign on your hand, and they are to be a remembrance between your eyes, which is a reference to tefillin, the phylacteries. Thus, in the first paragraph of the Shema, the mitzvah of Talmud Torah precedes the mitzvah of tefillin. But in the second paragraph, these two mitzvahs appear in the opposite order. Why this difference between the first paragraph, when discussing the teacher-student relationship, and the second paragraph, when discussing the obligation of a parent to his own children? The order of these two mitzvahs is reversed. So the teacher has to teach, that is his profession, so that regarding the mitzvah of tefillin, the instruction precedes the action. A parent, on the other hand, also has to teach, but first and foremost he does so by example. The parent is the role model for his child. Therefore, a parent teaches about tefillin by making sure the child sees his father putting on tefillin. So there, it's the act that precedes the teaching. Finally, we talk about the fear or awe of HaShem, and also the reward. So the pasuk says, Tira, you shall fear or be in awe of God. It can mean fear or awe. So which one is preferable? Awe is preferable, as it is a pure motivation, and being in awe prevents one serving God just from fear of punishment. The next pasuk says, L'tov lanu kol hayomim, to do all these things for our good all the days, to give us life. This means that HaShem promises, God promises, that no harm will befall one who follows his commandments. Thank you for listening to the shiur. We will be back next week, and until then, wishing you a good week and shalom.